Good evening, hope you're all well. This video is going to present to you a retouch from start to finish of this photograph that was taken last year at a wonderful mansion as part of a brilliant event called Walter's Wardrobe. In the comment section below, you will see all the information regarding the photo shoot, the production, the model, the styling, and everyone else that was involved in making this a fantastic event. Now, I'm putting this video together because a few of you had expressed how a step-by-step tutorial would be extremely helpful as opposed to a speed retouch, which is what I posted recently. So in response to that and those requests, I'm putting this video together for you. All I ask in return is you leave a comment, a like, and you share the video. Of course, there's no monetary expectation. Everything you're getting here is totally for free, and in return I would be very grateful if you would help promote this video and my channel in general by sharing on your Facebook or any other social media. That would be brilliant. Okay, enough talk, let's get on with the retouch. So straight off the bat, here is the image straight out of camera. We're in camera raw, and just a little bit of information about the actual photograph itself and how it was shot. You'll notice over here to the right hand side, the image was shot at f1.6. So I've been using the Sigma 35mm f1.4 lens a lot. It's a beautiful lens. I made a video on this not too long ago. I'll put a link down below. You can check out the video. It's a fantastic lens for this kind of work. And I'm shooting at 1.6. And if I just jump in to the image here, you'll see that the eye is not razor sharp. In fact, the focus is off a very, very small amount. It's off. And because we're shooting at 1.6 and then the opposite eye here, it's not on the same plane. The face is slightly tilted. This eye goes out of focus. But that doesn't bother me the slightest, and I would not discard a photograph like this simply because the focus wasn't razor sharp, because I know as I move out the eye will appear sharp, and after I've done a little bit of sharpening, working with light and dark, some dodging and burning, this eye will appear sharper. You can see the sharpness seems to have the focus I should say seems to have kind of caught onto the hair here as opposed to the eye. But this will be a good video to show you on how you can make things appear sharper and not to just chuck away those photographs that are really nice and you're happy with them. The expression, the mood, the lighting, the pose, everything's working well. And just because that front eye is not razor sharp, in no way am I going to get rid of that. I think the focus is actually nailed right here on the dress. You can see that there, that's beautifully sharp. And as we pull back, the eye's a little bit out, but it makes no difference because the aim and the style of this retouch is very much painterly. So we're not after razor sharp. It's all going to be a little bit soft in the end anyway. Now, I've underexposed the image, obviously, as you can see. We've got a lot of shadows here because obviously the scene was rather dark at the back. The light is flooding through the window here, but it's a partially open curtain, and I did that purely because it will create a narrower shaft of light which will create a more rapid fall off and you get more drama. I didn't want light to spill everywhere here in the background. Also, I've underexposed because we're dealing with a white dress, and I think just from my time shooting weddings, the last thing I wanted to do ever was to blow out the detail of a beautiful dress that the person who made the dress has worked really hard on and the bride has spent a lot of money on. I don't want to destroy any of that detail. And the model is very close to the window, so the light intensity is quite strong. Therefore, I've had to slightly, I've had to basically expose for the skin tones and the dress. And I know I can pull up the shadows right now. So I'll start off by doing that. I'll pull up the shadows. And if you're seeing a little bit of a weird glitching effect, I'm not actually sure what that is. It tends to happen when I'm doing a screen recording, and I'm actually screen recording here in 2.6K, so that might be something that is causing that glitching using the screen recording software. So this is full down. I'll just turn off these little indicators here so I can pull up the shadows and I can see what I've got. And I've got a little bit of something happening here. It's like a 4-poster bed in the background, and I'll leave it at that. I'm fine with that. I will also just pull up the blacks in general. And at this point, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create a less contrasty image at this point and something a little bit flatter. That's what I'm after at this point. I can also increase the overall exposure just a tad. Let's just zoom in and get rid of that funkiness. There we go. And I'm just trying to balance out the image a little bit more. In terms of white balance, I'm totally happy with the white balance. I don't think I did a custom white balance. I just let the camera decide. And to me, it looks fine. It's not too cool. It's not too warm. And that's one of the things I love about shooting on the Canon 5D Mark III, or just any of the Canons. The color straight out of camera generally bang on. Now I've selected 1998 16-bit image because I want the maximum quality out of this file. I will be grading and I will be working with colors, so I'd keep that at 16-bit as opposed to 8-bit to try and avoid any banding or anything like that, any artifacts popping up later on. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm pretty much happy with that, and I will open up the image in Photoshop. Now compositionally, I'm going to leave it for now. I might do a little bit of cropping. I might even, I would extend the scene. I would extend the space and create a wider appearance. But because of the pretty much void textures, and there's nothing really going on in this negative space here, so I don't really need to kind of stretch it out or bring more attention to this negative space. We have enough, so I will leave the composition as it is. What I will start off by doing though is I'll make a copy and I will just call this clean clone. And my aim on this first layer is fairly straightforward. It basically is to get rid of anything distracting and annoying. And one of the first things I find, which for me, it breaks my eye away from the subject's face, which is essentially what the portrait is about. It's about this woman in this space. It's not about anything else. The idea is my eyes, or the viewer's eyes, should be drawn right here onto this face, and then we'll look at the hair, the beautiful dress, and then we can take in everything else. And when we have this dark area here around all this light area, you know, our eyes are always going to be drawn to areas of contrast, and there's no more contrast that you can find and you really can't find any more contrast than pure black against pure white. So we do need to rectify that. And I'll do this very simply by picking the lasso tool, and I'll just select this area and I'll go edit, fill, and I will click content aware fill. I'll let Photoshop do its business and I'll see how that looks. And to me, it looks fine. It has smudged that area a little bit. So what I will do is I'll just get rid of that, and I will use the clone tool instead. And I will take this area up here, sample this, and I will just paint this in and see what I get. And that works a little bit better for me. I'll also just clean up this area here. I will take out that little dot in that area, and I will take some of this lighter part here and I will just brush this in, and that looks good. I'll come in with a smaller brush, and I will also just take this little black area here and I'll pull that down. I'll take a little bit of this shading here and I'll just paint this in. Again, just adding a little bit more of texture in that space, so we look like we have some ruffles and creases within that area, and that looks good. Let's see what else. I'll just come in here. That looks fine. Okay, anything else that's a little bit annoying? For me, it's just this little chip on the window pane, so I'll just do a shift and backspace as a quick way to bring up the content aware. So shift and backspace is your shortcut there, and I'll click OK, and that has also gone. Okay, that looks good. Now, as part of the headpiece that the designer put together, there were these kind of antennae, you could say, coming from the model's little hat area here. And to be honest, it's something that again, it's very bright, and we've got this big area of dark. It just stands out too much for me, so I'm actually just going to get rid of it. And I just feel it's detracting from the overall image, and we are battling with attention to the model. So I'll just, again, clone, I'll sample, I'll get rid of that. Gone a little bit far, let's zoom in. And let's pick the clone stamp tool, let's just get rid of that. And what I'll do is I'll pick this area here where I've got this little curve, and I will just draw that in there. And then I will look to take some of these areas and just put them in roughly for now. I know I've got a bit of patterning and it looks a little bit wrong there. So then I will break up this repeat pattern here by taking maybe this area and throwing it in here. And maybe I'll come across here and pull that in. And I'll zoom out and I'll just see what I've got going on there. Do I like that? Not so much. So I'll zoom back in. I think I'll just take this area from here and I will throw that in. And that seems to have worked better. And I'll also take maybe from under here. I'll just draw that in, and that's created a new shape. That's nowhere else there. I'll also just get rid of that. I'll come over and I'll do the same here. So I will take this area to start with. And I'll come across to that point there. I'll paint out here. Take some of this area. And I'll just clone this out. And I'm not obviously being absolutely 100% perfect here, because I really don't think you have to at all, to be honest. Because whoever looks at your picture, they are not going to know there was anything there to start with. Obviously, you've seen it before, so your eyes will be drawn towards that area and go, oh, well, that might not be perfect and so forth, but it's only because I've already drawn attention to that area. If you'd never seen it before, you just wouldn't know. You'd be none the wiser. Okay, so that's good. So we've got rid of those areas here, and we've kept that. And I will work with the shape here. In fact, I think I'll start that now. I will do a little bit of liquefying. So once I've cleaned up, I'm going to make a duplicate, and I'm going to type in liquefy, which is basically a sculpting of the figure. So I'll go to filter, and I'll go to liquefy. And my aim with the liquefy tool right now is basically to pull and to push the pixels and to basically sculpt. And I tend to do this part with a mouse as opposed to a Wacom. I just find that with the mouse, it's a little bit easier, and it allows me to just pull, click and pull, click and pull. You can see my size and pressure is fairly low. I think I'll bring the pressure down a little bit more. I'll also increase the brush size, and I will work by just teasing out the hair. I want to give that hair a bit more volume. I'm going to lift it here. We've got a bit of a flat patch going on here, so I'm just going to come in and I'm changing the size of my brush accordingly. So if I want to pull this out, I'll just come from inside and just lift a little bit. Make sure I don't change the direction of the curtain too much. I don't want it to look too pulled. I'll lift this area. I'll lift a little bit here and in here. And I've got the preview button, which I can turn on and off, and I'll zoom out. Oops, let's do that again. What have we done? Just give me a second. So I'll zoom out and see what we've got. So this is the before, this is the after. It's just lifted ever so slightly. And now what I'll also do is I will work with the space here. We'll make sure we're still on the forward push tool. I'm just going to tap and pull in, tap and pull in. I just want to make sure I've got a nice line here on the arm. I'm also going to pull in the dress just here and here. At the same time, just slim out the arm a little bit. Not that she needs that, but obviously the nature of the dress, which is a little bit loose, a little bit baggy on the arm, can make the model's arm appear that little bit more wider than it actually is in real life. So I'll just work that a little bit, pull this in. I'll just come back out. Again, we'll check that. Yep, just thinned out a little bit, and we'll also just pull out the dress just to give a little bit more shape here, and we'll pull it forward. Again, just being careful of that curtain pattern. That works for me. And what I will also do is I will use the pucker tool. And whenever you've got hands facing camera and they're closest to the camera, they will always appear to be bigger than what they are in real life. So what we can do is we can very gently just use the pucker tool and just reduce the size of the hand. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's very subtle. It just thins the hand, and it will just give that little bit more of a delicate element to the hand. I'll also do it on the wrist as well. So hopefully you can see what we've done there. It's ever so slight. We're not going crazy here. That looks good. Okay. So let's see. Okay, I'm pretty much happy with that. There's no more liquefying that I wish to do, and I will click OK and get back into the Photoshop file. So you'll see we've gone from there to there, and this is from start to finish. So we're just cleaning and teasing and just very slightly manipulating things in a manner that we bring attention more to the model and not to anything distracting. Okay, so now I've liquefied. I will do another copy of this layer, and generally I would be merging these down. I'll only ever have one layer at a time at this point, and I will have the background and I'll have the editing layer, because I'm perfectly happy with this. But for the sake of this tutorial, I will keep all of the layers, or all the major steps. So this is going to be face retouch. Okay, and the benefit of shooting obviously at 1.6, 1.8, 1.4 is we've already naturally got a skin smoothing effect. It's blur. The blur naturally from the wide aperture has softened the skin. The light that's coming in from the window camera left, it's a big window. It's fairly diffused. It was an overcast day, so we're getting nice soft light. Not that you can see the catch lights in the eye there anyway. So retouching is going to be really simple, and what I will do is I'll use the patch tool for this. I'll just select the area and drag to an area of good texture, and the patch tool is perfect. I could use the healing brush tool, I could use the spot healing brush, I could use the clone tool, but I just like using the patch tool. It just works really nicely, and you don't have to really sample anything first. You just select the area, drag it to an area where you like, and let go. Now, if the effect is too strong, there's one shortcut or one command I use a lot, and it's a brilliant command. It's the fade tool, or the fade command. So whenever you've done anything, it could be any command in Photoshop. You could be drawing a big black circle, or you could be doing a color adjustment. As soon as you finish that color adjustment, if you go to edit, you will see the fade option here. Shift Control F, and what that will bring up, it will bring up the opacity. This is the opacity of the command you've just done. So I got rid of the little laughter line on the model's face. Now, if I bring that back down to 0, you can see this is the effect fully turned on, and I can at this point just decide how strong I want that to be. I could get rid of it altogether, or I could just soften it, which is what I will do. And if the marching ants are in the way and they're annoying, just press Control H, which will hide the ants, and then you can see the result of this without any distractions. So I'm just going to bring it. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of it because this is going to be like a painting, and this is like a fairy tale photograph. So you know what? We'll get rid altogether. So that's gone. The marching ants are still there if I press Control H, so I have to remember to press Control D for the deselection. I'll also just work on this little patch here and just get rid of that and smooth that out as well. And all this is being done using the patch tool. A little line there, here. Okay, looks okay to me. I could even use the patch tool to work with areas like this eye bag here. If I do a Command Shift F, Command H to hide the selection, you can see before, and I can bring this up until it's something acceptable. I always find 60% is like the magic percentage for like literally everything. So I'll take this eye bag here as well. I'll come down, select that, Command Shift F, Control H, get rid of the effect, come back down to 0. I'll just lift this up, 60% again, looks good. Control D to deselect that hidden selection. Okay, let's see. And so for now, I think with the face, that looks good. I'll do a before, I'll do an after, that looks good. Now I will use let's go with the spot healing brush tool just for this eye area here, and I'll just paint in on that vein. See there, it's gone. Control Z, there we go, it's gone. It's just cleaned up that little eye, and it's going to be one of the things that you obviously need to do if you want to keep the eye nice and sharp. And in here we've got a little darkening here. I'm going to lighten that area soon, and that will give the eye a little bit more of it'll give the pupil a little bit more white around the outside, which will make that pupil stand out more, again giving the impression that it's a little bit more contrasty and sharper, because essentially that's what sharpness is. It's contrast. It's the difference between light and dark at an edge. And when you add sharpening to an image, essentially all it's doing is it's increasing that contrast level where the two different values meet. So if we can do that in editing, we will, give the impression that there is more of a perceived sharpness as such. Next, I'm going to look into the hair, because I've retouched the face. At this point, the hair looks great. There's not really much to do. There is one thing here. All of this hair is beautiful. It's following a direction, and we've got one straight line, which is breaking this natural curl of the hair. So we're going to scrap that all together. And I'll use a healing brush tool. I'll see what we get. If it's a bit soft and mushy, then I might... no, that looks good to me. You will not notice that the slightest when we zoom out here. That's gone. It's removed that kind of break in the natural curls, and that looks wonderful. So that's the face retouched. The next thing I will do, in fact, I've seen this little splodge here, this little area of white, and I'll just eliminate that again using the spot healing. Okay, next thing is I'm going to work with the values of light and dark on the face. So the way I would do this is pretty straightforward, and it is going to be through the use of a curves layer, which is right here. The curves layer, I'm going to have a lighten layer, and I'll rename this light. So this is areas where I'm going to add more light. And I will invert this mask by simply clicking Control and I on the keyboard, or I could go to select, let's see, Control I. Yep, that will invert it. Normally you can also do a select and inverse, or maybe it's a layer inverse. I don't know. I just press Control I and it sorted it. Okay, so now I've got a lighten layer with a black mask. So I'm naturally going to use a white brush to work on a black mask. White will reveal everything, and black will obviously conceal. My settings are, I will use a soft brush, 0% softness. I will make sure the opacity is at 100%. I'll keep the flow at 3%. This is going to mean that as I keep the pen on the Wacom tablet, it will slowly pour out 3% of that 100% as long as I've got the pressure down, and I can gradually move the Wacom over the surface and build up the lightening effect. So where am I going to lighten? Well, what am I looking for? I'm looking for patchiness. I'm looking for areas which are darker than the surrounding area, and it doesn't really necessarily look like the natural makeup or the natural skin tone. It might be just areas of shading which are not very flattering. And one way you can actually see these is by adding a, we could add a channel mixer layer, and we'll click on monochrome, and we'll bring down the reds, because red is where most of the values are in the skin. So I'll just work with this. I'll bring up the greens but bring down the reds a little bit. So something around about there. And now you should be able to see these areas of patchiness. I'll just highlight them for you using a regular brush here. I'll put that on 100%. I'll make it nice and hard. And I'll outline these areas of patchiness. So we've got this one right here. We've got one right here. We've got one a little bit here. This here, there's not a nice smooth transition as I would like. We've got some kind of bobbling here on the nose area. This part is quite light as opposed to this area, so we need to kind of work on there. This here as well, we've got like a couple of dark elements under there, and I could just work on that line there as well. So these are the target areas which I'm going to tackle, and by putting on that channel mixer layer you can actually see it a little bit easier. Okay, so let's get onto the light layer. Let's get our brush again. Let's set that back to 3%, and let's make sure we've got a nice soft brush. I'll increase the brush size here. I can use the Alt key whilst I hold down the left mouse button, or the left button on the Wacom tablet. If I move to the right, it will increase the size. If I move up, it will increase the softness. If I move down, it will increase the hardness. So you can do all that just from this shortcut. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit. And I will start with a relatively large brush, and I will just very lightly run the brush over the area. Now I've not done a lot there. Oops, let's just go back to that light. We're at 3%. Yep, that's all there. I'll just work on this excessively. I've got the pen, I'm keep going round and round in circles, and you can see what's happening. I've not taken my Wacom pen off the surface, and I'm just going over and over again. It's building up that effect. You can see essentially what we're doing. We're painting in the areas of light. And if I was to invert that, you will see exactly what we've got. So I'll invert that again, get that to black. And now I will start to paint. But again, I'm not going to spend too much time on any one particular area, because the last thing I want to do is over lighten anything. This is quite a delicate thing, and we'll just move backwards and forwards. And I'll keep my Wacom tablet, my Wacom pen, moving. Like I said, I won't stay on any area for too long, because I don't want to create any hot spots. I can come back to it if I feel I need to. And I'm just painting in and over. Now, if I turn this off, you will see what's happened there. It's very subtle, and it's happening over time in a gradual way. So again, I'm painting in these areas. And if you don't have a Wacom tablet and you are wanting to get into retouching portraits, and you are going to be dealing with skin and brushes, let me suggest you invest in a Wacom tablet with a pressure sensitive pen. There is no substitute for using a tablet. You cannot get this level of control in a mouse, and if you can, or if you have developed a good workflow with a mouse, by investing that little bit more time into getting used to a pen and tablet, I can assure you your finish, the quality of what you will get will improve, and it will just make for a much more enjoyable experience. But be aware that when you do get your Wacom tablet, there will be a period. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks. It all depends on you as an individual, that you will probably not like it. It might not feel very natural to you, but honestly, there will, after a few days for most people, it will just click, and it will become very, very easy and very, very natural. So give it time, persevere with it. I come from a fine art background, drawing and painting, so working with a pen and a tablet is pretty natural. The transition was very, very easy. So I'll just show you what we've got here with the light and the dark. It's the before, this is an after, and you can see, again, it's subtle stuff here, guys. We're not going crazy with it. It's a good time as well for me to add a little bit more light into the eye. So I'll just work that in. I won't go too far into the corners. Let's check before, after. That's nice. Because I see so many times people retouch eyes, and they feel that the retouch has to involve them going into the whites and making the whites pure white. The reality is our eye whites are not pure white, and they're not perfectly white right down into the corner. There has to be a natural shadow around the outside. The eye is a three-dimensional sphere, you could say, and it should have areas of light and it should have areas of dark, and without those, the eye stops looking like an eye. It starts to look very unnatural, and it just doesn't look good. So I'm just lightening this area in here, and we'll turn that off, turn that on, and I'll just work on this little highlight in here a little bit. And now we're going to work on just the tip here of the eye, and this little natural highlight in here, and essentially these little eyelashes. This is going to start to make the eye appear sharper. And again, I will do the same. This is already fairly light, so I won't work too much in there, as is that area there. Okay, I'll just pull out a little bit. I'll show you the before and after on the eye. Before, after. It's starting to look really nice. I can come in here. You can see, if we turn the mixer channel on, and I will leave the mixer channel on now whilst I work with these little dark patches in here. using again our soft brush. And really, you don't necessarily need to go to this level. You could just blur this a little bit more, but I'm trying to show you a way which you retain, well, whatever textures here, which is not a lot. But if you can pick up this technique, which is essentially dodging, we're not done any burning yet. Burning is the opposite, and I'll show you that shortly. But if you start to develop this dodging technique, then it's something that's going to be useful for you, and you should get a nice result. It does take time and a bit of practice. Now, I wouldn't necessarily dodge every image. Like, it all depends on the outcome, right, guys? Because, you know, if I work as a fashion photographer, so if I've got 45, 50 pictures in a collection of a fashion shoot with all these different looks, there is no way on earth am I going to be dodging and burning anything when it comes to the subject's face, because it's the clothing that is the hero of the shot. It's all about the clothing. And also, you're not going to get paid for that level of retouch. And to be honest, the model's head is so small in relationship to the entire picture that, you know, it wouldn't even be noticed anyway. So for that kind of situation, I wouldn't use a technique like this. I have a different workflow for that to get good skin and a good finish without having to spend ages. But if you're doing stuff and it's a collaboration, it's for personal project work, it's going to go on your portfolio, it's going to go on your website, then yes, you should invest that time and make your image the best it can be, something that you can be really proud of and you're really happy with what you've done. So I'm just moving around this image here, and I'm just working in these areas where there's this little patchiness. I'm just moving that brush around. Again, I'll show you what we've got. I'll turn it off and turn it on. You can see there's quite a lot happen there. I'll turn off the channel mixer, so before and after. Come back out, and it takes a little bit of time, but you'll start to see these areas of value of light and dark, and it'll just take time, and then you'll get used to it. Okay, so that's not bad. Now I definitely need to sort out this area of the nose. You can see we've not got necessarily a perfectly straight line, and why should we? Because this is just the shape of the model's nose and the way that it's lit. But what we will try and do is we'll try and just work this and add maybe a little bit more darkness to this area, and just to try and create something a little bit more uniform. So first I'll just add a little bit of light into this area here, and then I'll turn off the channel mixer. I'll come back out to full view. Let's just have a look at what we've got. Let's turn it off, turn it on. Nice. We'll click on the curves. We'll do an opposite curve. We'll make everything that little bit darker. Bring it down a bit more, maybe about there. Control I to invert the mask. Again, I'm using the white brush. And I will start to paint on areas which are too bright. So this highlight here makes the nose appear like it's bulging. So essentially, if I start to darken that white light area, that should help reduce the appearance of that bulge and essentially start to flatten it out a little bit. And I'll go in pretty rough to start with to see if that is actually having an effect. Let's zoom out a bit. Turn it on. Turn it off. Okay, it's getting there, I think. Just need to work this area here as well. I'll add a little bit more in this area here. I will try and just work this line a little bit, and in here just move backwards and forwards along here. Okay, let's see. All right, not too bad. Not too bad. Now, I am in no way, shape or form an expert in retouching at all. I retouch all my own photographs. I do enjoy the retouching process, but I am not an expert. I've not invested as much time as I suppose I could in getting really familiar with many different techniques. I use the more basic techniques of dodging and burning, and I often use frequency separation depending on the job. I like to work with curves and so forth. I'm just so you know what I'm doing here, I'm just going to get the patch, the healing brush tool. I've just gone back onto the face retouch. I'm just going to eliminate that little blemish there pretty quickly, because I just saw that now, it just came up. And that does happen as well. You will see things that you might have missed earlier, and that's just normal, so don't worry about that. Let's get a drink here. Okay. Now, if you've got any questions on anything that I'm doing today, or if there's anything you want to know, then, you know, comments are there for that reason. Cracking. Okay, let's carry on. Let's go back onto this layer here. I'll rename this. This is dark. And let's get the brush back up. Get back on there. And let's work in this area a little bit. And just smooth out that transition there. Just work on that little bump a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to zoom out now. I'm going to see where we're at. Okay, let's have a look. That's before. That is after. Now, that line can look a little bit abrupt here. So what I am going to do right now is I'm going to put these into a group. I'm just going to rename this DB, Dodge and Burn. And I'm going to flatten everything, but I'm going to retain all the layers. I'm going to create a stamp visible layer, which basically is compressing all these into one, but still keeping all these. So I do that using the Control, Alt, Shift, and E. I get this new layer, which is basically all of these layers combined, and I'll just call this good one. Basically, at this point, I'm really happy with the way the retouch has gone, and depending on what it is, I would probably save it right now, which I should save anyway, to be fair. I'll just stick this on the desktop. That's fine. I'll click save. Okay. And then I would just actually leave the computer. I would go away for about half an hour, and I'd come back and I'd have a look at things again, give my eyes a little bit of rest, and see where we're at. We've been going so far now for 43 minutes. So this is a lot longer. I mean, this is really, for me, it's a 25-30 minute retouch, but I'm obviously doing everything slowly. I'm trying to give you guys all the information that you need, and I'm probably waffling on and rambling on, and you're probably getting fed up and thinking, just hurry up. But I don't know what the level of your experience is, so maybe this very slow process is exactly what you need. If it's not, let me know in the comments. Right, so I've done the stamp visible layer, and now I'm just going to work this patchiness a little bit more, and I'm going to try and do this using the patch tool, which might seem a little bit odd, but I'm just going to take this line here and the areas around it, and I'm going to come over here to the cheek, and I'm just going to go like that, and then I'm going to do Control Shift F and then a Control H, and I'm going to see what I've got. I'll zoom out a little bit, and I'll go back down to 0, and you can see I can bring this effect up, and essentially it's smoothing everything I've done there. So let's go back down to 0. We've got that harsh line. You can see almost like the bone structure underneath or the cartilage structure. I'll go up to 0, to full. That's too much. Let's bring it down to that magic 60%. And hey presto, beautiful. Okay, I'll do a Control Z so you can see before and the after. Let's turn that off, turn that on. Beautiful. It's nice and smooth. It's retained the shape of her nose. It doesn't look heavily retouched. That is really, really happy. And I didn't actually plan to do that, but using the patch tool over the top, fab. Now, you can notice her lips are a little bit dry and chapped, but that was purposeful. The lipstick that was added was like that. It was there for that reason. What I will do, however, is I'll just do a control, I'll just do a press M on the keyboard for the selection. I'm just selecting the lips, and I'm going to go to filter, and I'm going to go to liquify. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to get my mouse button. I'm just going to reduce the size of this brush. And I'm just going to, quite simply, tease out that bottom lip. I'm just going to round that lip off a little bit so it doesn't look so flat. Just about there. Click OK. Great. See the before, after, just rounded off that lip a little bit. And I will also just ever so slightly soften this. Command Shift F, 60%. I'm going to keep that. I'm just going to get rid of a little bit of this darkness on the lips, a little bit too strong. Command Shift F, 60%. I'm just going to take that patch there. I'm going to come across into this softer area. Command Shift F. That's at 0. Here we go. 60%. Bang on. I'll just take this little white lip bit here. Command Shift F. Don't want to get rid of it altogether. 60%. There. Let's come back out. The lips have still got texture, but we've lost that strong harshness in the lip. Okay. That looks good. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's see where we're at now. Okay, nice. Now what I will do is I will create another layer. And this is going to be a curves layer. This is going to be a lighten layer. And unlike before, when I was simply trying to work out the imperfections in the skin, the little areas where it was a bit too dark, patchy, now what I'm going to be doing is creating areas of light, which is going to extenuate the beautiful features of the model. And basically we're going to paint with light, and we're going to do a bit of sculpting. But again, I'm at 3%, soft brush, and we're using a slightly larger brush this time. So what I will do first is I will do a little bit of dodging on the face, and I'm going to be working with the areas that already have areas of light on there. You can see the cheekbones. We've got a beautiful soft Rembrandt light coming in from the window. And just a little tip here, when you're taking photographs of models and you want to get that Rembrandt light from window light, just ask the model to stand in front of the window, looking at the window, looking out of the window, and then you just make sure that you're opposite them, so I should say actually adjacent to them, and then just ask them to turn back towards you. And as they tilt their head towards you, and they turn their face towards you, you'll get this beautiful Rembrandt light. It will illuminate one side of the face, and it will just spill onto this cheek here and giving you that wonderful area. Okay, I'm waffling again. Right, let's add a little bit more light in some of these areas. I'm going to start with the forehead, and I might go over the top here to start with, but you'll see we can always pull that back. I'm going to work on the bridge of the nose. Just going to add a bit more light on this cheek, and similarly here. The eyes, definitely I'm going to just lighten a little bit more. On the chin here, I'll just add a bit more light under the eye. Feels a little bit too dark still. I'll work on the brow here. Make sure I don't do too much. It's very easy to go over even at a 3% float. And I'm changing the size of the brush because a bigger brush is going to give you a softer feather at the edges. I will just lighten up just the little shape there on top of the lip, the actual lips here themselves. Working here on the nose, this little area of light there, a little bit more on the chin. And I'll come out and I'll see what we've got here. Okay, that's coming on fairly well. And a little bit more light here, and a little bit more in here. Let's have another look. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm just going to bring down the percentage to 60%. Again, that special number. And 60 has just done it for me. Yeah, it's just lifted. Ever so slightly it's lifted. I am noticing though, on this cheek, we've got this dark patch right here where this is supposed to be nice and soft and round. We've got this one dark patch that running across, and that needs to be eliminated because I want to create this really nice round highlight area here just on the cheek, and I don't want that patch breaking that area up. Okay, that seems better. Let's work a little bit more. If you can hear that squeaking, that's my Wacom pen. It's pretty old now and it is a bit squeaky. Okay, that looks better. Throw a bit more light into the eye. We'll work on that eyelid again. And just under there. Get that highlight in there. A little bit, okay. Let's zoom out again. Let's see what we've got. Good, looks nice. And I'm just going to work a little bit at the top of the head here. There's a little bit of a darkness there. Just smooth out that bit. Okay, looks good. Right, I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to make a copy of this layer, but I will fill this with white and then invert it back to black, so it's a brand new layer on top of the previous one. And I'm going to set my flow on this to 50%, so it's going to come out a bit stronger. And I'm just going to work on the hair. I'm going to really bring out these wonderful curls in this beautiful hair. And you can see what we've got, what's going on here. We're bringing out those wonderful highlights on the hair. And I'll do a little bit on the highlights of this lace headpiece here, this wonderful creation. I won't work on the dress in any way, shape or form. There's plenty of light already on that dress. In fact, I will probably tone that down shortly. Again, the lightest area, I want the face to take the major focus, and then the dress can be secondary in this case. Okay, let's see what we've got with the hair. Nice, and we're at 60%, which works well. 100% is a bit too strong. That magic 60. Okay, so that's the hair done. What I will do now is I'll just work with the dress. Let's just rename this. So this is going to be Face Sculpt. This is going to be Hair Highlight. We can get rid of the channel mixer now, that was just there, and this was showing us the areas we can get rid of that. And I'll make a curves layer here, and I'm just pulling down the highlights here. And all I'm looking at right now is the dress. I'm not looking at the model, I'm just looking at the dress. And I'm just finding a point where the dress is just, highlights are just toned down. It's right about there. I'll do a Control I, get rid of that, get my brush, I'll set the flow to 100 and I will just paint onto the dress and just tone that down in the areas which I feel it needs to be a little bit more subdued. Okay, I'll just bring it a little bit back on the arm. Let's see, before, after, before, after. Okay, now let's see where we're at. Okay. All right, that looks quite nice overall. What I will do is, this is dress. I'll just rename this dress. I'm not going to add any highlights on the hand. I'm going to leave the hand as it is. I don't want to bring any more attention to the hand. So that looks good to me. I think what I will do now is just overall throw in a curves, and I'll just brighten everything a little bit. I'll bring down the contrast and see if I like that, which some people might go, that's perfect, that's just what it needed, that little bit of contrast. For me, I'm not feeling it. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to leave the image as it is right now. I'm going to come in and I'm going to crop. I'm going to have a look at this compositionally. I feel I've got a little bit too much headroom, which, although it's nice to have that headroom, I don't think I need so much. I'm gonna work with this rule of thirds line cutting right across the eyes. We've still got the negative space there. It's working fine. I could put the model's eye right on that rule of third. Let's do that. And then let's take this area, select it using the marquee tool. I'll come down to the good layer, Command Shift and backspace, content aware. I'll just let Photoshop fill that up. Done. We've got really nicely balanced composition, rule of thirds, boom, perfect. Okay, so at this stage I'll make a Command Shift Alt and E, and this is good 2, and then I will save. So at this stage right now, we're done with the main basic retouch in terms of dodging, burning, lightness and darkness and so forth. What I would do now is I would slightly add a bit of sharpening to the image. I'm going to show you how I do that next. Add a little bit of sharpening to the image before we go into color grading, and I will go through the process of that. So in terms of how long the video's now almost been running an hour. Hopefully, if you're still with me right now, you've made it so far, so I congratulate you on that. I know I'm waffling, I know I'm going on a little bit, but I do want this to be a very concise video for you guys. Okay, so let's go on to sharpening. So what I'll do is I'll go to Filter, Nick Collection, and I use the Output Sharpener, which I think is brilliant, quite simply. It's a great tool. I'll just make this a little bit smaller, hopefully, so you can see it all. I actually work on a 4K TV, believe it or not, with a secondary color calibrated monitor. I use the 4K TV because it just quite simply gives me a lot of space to work with. It's a 43-inch TV. I can get lots of windows open. It's great for video editing, and I've got a calibrated monitor, so everything at the moment is slightly off scale with what it should be. So anyway, waffling again. Here we go, adaptive sharpening. I always tend to use the basic settings. So you can see down in the corner, as I move across, that is the before, and this is the after. And I'm normally happy with the default settings. So I'll click OK. I'll apply sharpening. It's created its new layer here. Let's zoom in and see what's happened. You can see the before and the after. Now it's obviously sharpened everything, which is not what I want. I don't want to sharpen the hair really anymore. I don't want to sharpen the dress too much. It's really the eyes. So I will hold down the Alt key and click on the mask tool on the sharpen layer. It will automatically make a black mask. So the effect of sharpening has been removed. It's hidden. So remember, black conceals and white reveals. So I'll now get my brush. I'll make sure it's set to white. I will put it on 50% opacity, and I will tap, tap, tap on the eye area and on the other eye. And I'm just tapping here, a little bit on the bridge of the nose, a little bit on the lips, a bit on the chin, a little bit on the forehead, on the eyebrow. I'll just generally sharpen this region of the face, and I'll go to 20% and I'll do a little tap on the neck, very little bit on that hair, just on the edge, and that's it. I think I'm good with that. Sharpening on and off. Let's see if you can see the difference. Off, on, go to 100%. That eye looks razor sharp, and no one would have known that it was slightly off focus to start with. No one. Okay, so that is good. So that's the sharpening. And now I will, in fact, really, to be fair, the sharpening should have come along at this stage prior to me. Command-Shift-E, and then now we're good here. Good too. And this is the layer that I will be grading now the sharpening has been put in place. So what I'm going to be using is a plugin called Alien Skin, and we're going to be looking at Exposure X2. Alien Skin is a paid plugin. You have to obviously pay for it. It's not like Nick Color Effects, which is free. It's a great program. It gives you a wonderful vintage Polaroid color presets, which are great starting points for you to work with, to adjust, to amend, and obviously to tweak. So this is the last preset I used on the previous speed retouch, so it's remembered that. And I can just run my mouse over these and I can find something that looks nice. Now yellowed, that is beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. It's very saturated, but it's a great starting point. So I'm going to start with that and I'm going to make some adjustments. So straight off, I'm going to get rid of overlay, because at the moment we've got this textured overlay, so I'll just turn that off. If I want, I can open it up, I can expand it, and I can work with that. I'm going to turn that off to start with. Focus I'm going to turn off, which is to do with bokeh, because I've already got the right amount of focus. IR is image, what does IR stand for? Glow only, oh, okay. Infrared, I think, I'm turning that right off. Bokeh I'm also turning off. Grain, I have to really zoom in to see the level of grain on the image. And let's have a look at what we've got. Overall grain strength, let me turn this right down. Relative size, we will increase the grain just a little bit. I don't want to go too grainy on this, that looks fine, because the image already had a little bit of grain because we pulled up the shadows earlier in the camera raw, which obviously introduced a little bit of grain, noise, whatever. We'll turn off the vignetting. We don't need any vignetting on the image. Let's turn off the tone curve. That will flatten it out. So we'll keep that tone curve in, but we will have a look at the points of light and dark. Let's have a look here. Let's turn this off, turn this on. Okay, I'm going to bring up the shadows a bit here. I'm also going to bring down the highlights just a tad. Let's come into color. Let's look at the overall strength, density. Let's turn the density right down. Okay, so the density was giving us an oversaturated effect here. It was far too strong. You can see when we bring it up, it really has a strong effect. So I'm just going to bring this, I'm just going to have a touch here. Now, obviously, what I'm doing here is totally down to your preference. This is just the way I see it. You might not like this. You might think, oh God, there's not enough color. It should be more contrasty. Well, that's fine. This is just the way I'm going about it. I'm just going to bring the highlights down. Okay, so this was adjusting the highlight color. So I'm just going to keep that up. I'm just going to bring the color down a little bit in the shadows. And I think I will also bring down the overall warmth a little bit, so it just gets a little bit cooler. And the overall saturation, let's just have a tweak of that. I'll bring that down maybe a little bit to like -5%. So it's toned, but it's not excessive. And the color, let's just have a little play with the color. Let's just move this slider around and see what else we get, because we don't know. I did like the yellow, but I think I'm opting for a little bit more towards the yellow green, just in that zone, just there. I love that. Okay, I'm going to apply that effect. Let's click on apply. And this is what just, boom, finishes the picture. I mean, we've gone from that to that. We've gone from a nice retouch to something that looks like a painting. And it's been through the use of alien skin. That is what's done it. Now, if the effect is too strong, the beauty of exposure alien skin is it creates a new layer. We can obviously adjust the strength. Let's go to our perfect 60 and see what we get. That's before, that's after. That could be enough for you. And to be fair, I think it's enough for me. Let's go back to 100. Yeah, it's too strong. 60%, let's look. Let's just type in 60 here. That's it. 60% is the number today. It's the magic number. And we've got our finished, final, graded, retouched, refined image. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's do a, let's get rid of the rulers. Let's go for the before. This is where we started. Wow, this is where we've ended. Okay. Where we started, where we've ended. The model still looks like her. We've not changed the features to the point we don't see or we don't recognize who she is. We've not manipulated her body, so we've given her a totally different shape. We've taken what's already there, which is a beautifully styled and posed and lit model, and we've just made it perfect. And hopefully you found this video super useful, and hopefully you appreciate the time I've taken to create this video. If you do, hit that like button, subscribe, and by all means, please do share this video with other people. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, you've got patience. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.